Do you have an LML Duramax that's giving you a PO128 thermostat problem, or you're having regen issues? So in an LML Duramax, a thermostat is a common failure, and most of the time it will give you a code PO128. But a lot of times what I found is that after fixing issues with the regen light or a def codes, things like that, I found that when I try to run a regen, the truck tries and tries and tries, and it fails for coolant temp operation. And when I watch it with a scan tool, what happens is the temperature comes up, and then all of a sudden, it just drops back down because those thermostats fail and they stick open. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the thermostats in this LML Duramax and confirm that it's fixed. Before we do, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell. You get notified of all my future content, which you definitely don't want to miss. Let's go change out some thermostats.
So down there, you got to take the clip off the lower radiator hose and pop it off so you can drain the coolant. Next up, so I always mark my hoses like that. So when I put them back on, they go exactly where they're supposed to. So we got to take off this upper radiator hose here. We got to take out this bolt right there for the oil fill and right there for the upper fan shroud. Also got to take out these two bolts right here. Those two bolts there for the fuel pressure test port. And then there is a fuel return right below it. This guy right there, this plastic guy here, we got to pop up out of the clip and reposition it out of the way. So once we unbolt this, we'll be able to move that fuel return and move it back out of the way. So take this guy and plug it back like that. Just get it out of the way. And then here's the return I was talking about. So the clip is in the thermostat housing. So you got to just kind of push it out of the way. And now once we get this hose off, we have full access to all the bolts. So this back bolt right here, the back one on the driver's side is, the hose clamp is up in the way. So you're going to have to use a chrome socket, and it's really hard to get out, but it won't fit on the bolt without a chrome socket. An impact socket won't work, and you may have to find a really thin-walled 13 to get in there. But it's 4 13s. One there, one there, one back there, and then one right down there. So for this bolt right here, you have to kind of put a screwdriver up against the bolt and kind of walk it forward to get it out because it's up against that hose clamp. But once you do that, once we get these out, you gotta, so the fan shroud has a little nipple in it sticking in to the thermostat housing. So I got to put a screwdriver in there. Once you get all your bolts out, you can see it right there. So once you get your bolts out, you can put a screwdriver here and kind of pry forward, and it'll pop the thermostat housing above that nipple. But now here's the kicker on these. You got to be careful because there's two different thermostats, and they go in two different places. So when you finagle this out, well, let me get it out. All right, so here's the thermostat housing. It's out. So the front thermostat was sticking into the housing. That's why I couldn't get it out. So you can see that there is a thermostat back there with the two dimples in it. Let me set this down. So you can see at the rear of that thermostat, there's the two little dimples in it. The front one doesn't have anything at all. So you got to make sure that you put them in the correct, I'll show you how to put them in the correct orientation. But you want to make sure that they don't lose their position so you know exactly where they go. And all I had to do to get the housing out was I had to just pull up on this AC line a little bit, and then it finagled out. Here's what I was talking about. That's the rear little dimples there. So it's got two little reliefs. They've got to go in a certain position. So I'll show you once we get it in. But now that we got it out, just go ahead and wipe out your area down there and get it all nice and clean. So one thing you want to look out for is your bolt holes here. You want to make sure that there's no coolant in the bolt holes. So what you got to do is take an air nozzle and blow them out because if you got coolant in there, it won't tighten down properly and you could break some. You can see I got coolant in that hole right there. So I got to blow all those out. So this is really important. So this is your front thermostat. It's going to go in like this at the front. This is your rear thermostat, and you want to put these holes side by side like this. Just down like that. That's the back thermostat. So they should look like that. Just like that to the back. From right there is a good angle right there. Actually, it's kind of hard to look, makes them look like the back ones are crooked, but they're even along the back. Hell yeah. Got to clean this thermostat housing on this Duramax, and I get to finally use it. I finally got the right angle drill here with the roll lock disc. Little tip here, go ahead and put a zip tie and lock your stupid lock button or your safety button so you don't have to keep pressing it. And there we go. Milwaukee for the win. So here's my Milwaukee right angle die grinder, and I had a lot of haters on this. So I've got a M12 STS Auto Designs mag pack on there. And I've got this STS trigger here. I removed this mechanism they had here. And let me tell you, this button right here, being the size that it is perfect for your finger to hit because this handle is not little. And when your finger comes around, you're kind of barely on there. And so with this trigger, man, it really makes it nice to be able to hit that trigger. You guys should go check them out at STS Auto Designs. Use code Nuts and Bolts with Tone, and you can get yourself a trigger, mag pack, and mag packs for all your chargers, your batteries, Snap-on 14.4 batteries, Milwaukee. We got all of the good stuff. M18. Yep, STS Auto Designs. Use code Nuts and Bolts with Tone for 10% off. All right. So before you put your thermostat housing in, you want to go ahead and clean it. Just going to give it a little sand here. So what I'm going to use, I just got it. I'm pretty stoked. I just got the Milwaukee right angle drill. Normally I would come down here, the bottom of my cart, and get out my trusty die grinder here, a little Blue Point. I used the Harbor Freight one for like 10 years. Finally bought that. But then you got to drag an air hose around. So with this one here, you just go ahead and grab it. We're going to give it a light clean. We're going to drop it and try to break it. That's the first thing you want to do. Once you do that, you're going to need a torque wrench. So what I'm using is this Sunex Tools. There's the number right there. It's 10 to 80 foot-pounds. And we're going to go 18 foot-pounds on those 4 bolts. So you want to be careful. You don't want to break it. You don't want to make it too loose. You don't want to have a leak. And the other tip I'll give you is anytime you're dealing with thermostat codes, you want to make sure that you use a good quality part. And here's why. So in this Duramax here, when I'm done, I'm going to run a regen on it. Thermostat codes are a pain when you're dealing with regen. So you try to do a regen, the truck won't warm up. And then after it's been running for an hour, it'll set a thermostat code or it'll set something saying the coolant won't warm up. And therefore you can't run your regen. You can't get it out of limp mode. Whatever you need to do, it's not going to work if your cooling system is not working properly. That is why you want to use a factory thermostat. That's why this is getting GM thermostats, because I don't want to go out and try to run a regen and just to find out the cooling system won't warm up because of not a bad thermostat, but a bad good one. You put one in, wasn't a good thermostat, got a problem. Plus GM made these thermostats for this truck so they know what it needs, what it's going to take, and hopefully for it not to fail right away. So that's my tip on thermostats and using quality parts. So really, you're not trying to grind down the thermostat housing. You're just trying to knock off the crap. You can use not a Brillo pad, but something like that and some brake cleaner. You can see here, I just gave it a nice little clean and now we're ready to go on.
So when you put your thermostat housing back on, you can pull the fan shroud forward and your thermostat housing has to go over your thermostats and it's got to go inside that dimple that's in the fan shroud. So if you pull it forward and you wiggle it just right, you'll get it to pop in, but it has to pop in and you'll see it right there, just like that. For the bolt that goes in the front of the fan shroud, the easiest thing to do is you use one of these tight reach extension wrenches and you can put your socket on one end and your gun on the other or ratchet, whatever. And it operates like this. You have your ratchet on one end and it turns the socket on the other, and you can get it done. And here they have the sockets that go with it.
So a little tip, go ahead and so when you put your thermostat in, you want to go ahead and this back bolt on the passenger side, on the driver's side, you want to run this one as down as far as you can with a magnet, just kind of twirl it until it goes down. Get all your bolts in and get them close to snug where you can still move the housing. Then, before you torque it down, go ahead and put your bolt here for your oil feed or for your oil fill and also for your fan shroud. Because once you tighten it down, sometimes it's hard to get the bolts lined up. So go ahead and tighten these up, and now we're going to torque these 4 to 18 foot-pounds. Now, you might have noticed that I had this this bracket off right here. You don't have to take this off. You can leave this on. So now that we've got the thermostat housing bolted back up, now you want to take your return and snap that back in, just like that. And then now we're going to go ahead and bring this over here and bolt this back up and put your 2 13s back there, and then put your upper hose back on. Most importantly is that when you fill the cooling system, you want to use a vacuum refiller. So what this is doing is it's pulling the cooling system down into a vacuum. Depending on your gauge and how old it is, mine will go to about 27 inches of vacuum it'll hold. So I'll let it go down to there. And then when you're done, you can close the valve and then watch your gauge. And if your gauge doesn't drop right away, you don't have a leak. Most likely you don't have a leak. But that's going to go ahead and it's going to suck all the hoses closed, and it's going to make sure you don't have any air in the cooling system. Just finished putting thermostats in this LML and using the top down, make sure that the temp comes up because I got to run a regen, put a knock sensor in it. How's your guys' day going? And I love the Phoenix Light 3, man. This thing is awesome.
After watching this video, I'm sure that replacing the thermostats in your 6.6 Duramax LML is going to be a piece of cake. And you're also going to be surprised at how well your heater works, and also that you may not have any regen issues. You may not even have known that you were having regen issues. And hey, maybe the truck was trying and then it wasn't succeeding, and then the next time it would work because the thermostats were starting to fail. And then they just get to the point where they completely fail instead of PO128. Drop a comment down below and let me know if you've had issues with these, and how did you know? Were you getting a PO128 or were you having regen issues? Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.